He didn't believe in fate not since the day his ex-fiancée, Lily Morgan, walked out of his life without a proper goodbye, leaving behind only a shattered engagement ring on the marble kitchen counter and a note that read like a transaction receipt instead of a farewell cold, distant and final. And though Ethan Cole, the 36-year-old CEO of the trillion-dollar tech titan Viridian Systems, had mastered the art of appearing unshaken in a world built on image and invulnerability, there were nights when he stared out of his penthouse window into the lifeless skyline of New York and wondered how someone who once claimed to love him could vanish like breath on glass, leaving a void that no amount of success, wealth, or applause could fill. But when an ivory envelope arrived on his desk one cloudy Tuesday afternoon, bearing a gold-foiled invitation to the annual Astoria Royale Charity Gala, prestigious affair attended by the elite and infamous alike, and hosted by none other than Lily's new fiancé, a charming but power-hungry senator's son named Damian Wells. Something inside Ethan reignited, not warmth or nostalgia, but a smoldering ember of something he thought long extinguished: the need to be seen, to be remembered, to prove that he hadn't just survived the heartbreak, but outshone it, outgrown it, and outclassed it. So he did what no calculated CEO would normally do. He told his assistant to find him a date, not a celebrity, not a model, not someone the tabloids already adored, but someone completely unknown, someone unexpected, someone who would walk in on his arm like a mystery, dressed in elegance, and make Lily question everything she had once let go. And that's how Aria entered his world, not with fanfare, not with a curated portfolio or a practiced smile, but with eyes like forest rain and a voice that trembled with both depth and restraint, as though she carried 1,000 unspoken stories in her silence. And when she stepped into his office for the first time, dressed in second-hand jeans and an old leather-bound book clutched to her chest, Ethan felt the rhythm of his guarded life shift. Something ancient and forgotten stirred in his chest, something fragile yet magnetic, but he shook it off, masking his intrigue with his usual veneer of professionalism, explaining the night, the event, the expectations. And she listened, not nodding like someone eager to please, but like someone assessing whether she wanted to be part of the performance at all. And when she finally said yes, it wasn't with starry-eyed excitement, but with quiet poise, as if she knew her presence would ripple deeper than either of them could predict. And on the night of the gala, when she emerged in a navy gown that shimmered like midnight secrets, with her hair cascading down her back in gentle waves, Ethan found himself speechless, not because she looked beautiful, but because she looked real, untouched by the layers of pretense and perfection that usually defined his world. And when they entered the ballroom, where chandeliers hung like galaxies and champagne sparkled in every crystal flute, it wasn't Ethan who commanded the roomette, was Aria, with her serene confidence, her curious gaze, her ability to make even silence feel significant. And as they mingled through the crowd, Ethan noticed how people leaned in closer to her, not because of who she was with, but because of who she was: bold, yet soft, thoughtful, yet fearless. And when they finally approached Lily and Damien, Aria's smile didn't falter. Her eyes didn't narrow in competitions. She simply nodded with quiet grace, and something in Lily's carefully sculpted posture wavered, as if she'd just seen a ghost of the life she could have had if she'd chosen differently. And throughout the evening, Aria didn't just play the part of the date. She asked questions that made politicians stutter. She quoted poetry that softened hard-hearted CEOs. She danced, not for attention, but because the music called her to move. And as Ethan watched her under the golden lights, surrounded by people who didn't know how to exist without being seen, he realized she was teaching him something he never learned in boardrooms or Forbes covers: how to exist without performing, how to matter without shouting, how to feel without fear. When the air was crisp and the city stretched below them like a map of stories waiting to be lived, he asked her the question that had been burning through his carefully contained armor: who are you, really? And she didn't offer a rehearsed answer. She told him about the childhood bruises hidden behind ballet trophies, about nights she slept in a shelter with a notebook instead of a pillow, about the sister she lost to leukemia, and the way grief never truly left, only changed shape. And Ethan listened, not like a man ticking off bullet points, but like someone starved for truth. And when she looked at him and said, "I've learned to stop running from the parts of me that hurt," something inside him cracked, not shattered, but cracked open to let the light in. And the next morning, when she disappeared without a trace, leaving only a handwritten note that read, "You don't need someone to make your ex jealous. You need someone who will teach you how to love what's left after the fire." Ethan didn't react the way he once might have. He didn't send people to find her or let bitterness return. Instead, he took a breath, remembered the way her words had settled into him like seeds, and began to change, not outwardly, but internally. He visited shelters and spoke with children who reminded him of her courage. He turned meetings into moments of mentorship. He stopped chasing headlines and started chasing healing. And weeks later, when he found her at a small community library, reading stories to kids whose lives mirrored her own, he didn't bring flowers or diamonds or the kind of apology rich men think solves everything, he simply sat beside her and said, "I want to build something real, and I want to start with you, if you'll let me." And in the months that followed, Aria didn't just become his partner, she became his compass, his mirror, his truth. And Ethan didn't just heal, he transformed, letting go of the man who needed to prove something and embracing the man who simply wanted to feel alive. And when Lily saw them together again at the next gala, where Aria wore the same dress, not out of thrift, but out of defiance to the idea that worth had anything to do with newness, she didn't feel envy, she felt loss. Because Ethan had finally become the man she never believed he could be. All because of the girl he brought to make her jealous, who instead made him whole. And yet, healing was not a straight line. It bent, twisted, and sometimes recoiled like a wound unready to close. And even as Ethan and Aria built a new life together, shadows from both of their pasts lingered. Aria struggled with nightmares of the shelter, the echo of a locked door behind her that once meant danger, not safety. And sometimes she would disappear into silence for hours, days even, retreating into herself while Ethan waited outside, learning patience in a world that once taught him control. Till one night, she broke down in his arms, sobbing not for what he did, but for all the men who came before him. And Ethan simply held her, whispering, no promises, only presence. And it was in those moments, the raw, unguarded ones, that their love began to weld, not like a fairy tale, but like iron reshaped by fire and tempered in grace. And meanwhile, Damian Wells, ever the political opportunist, launched his Senate campaign using Lily as a symbol of wholesome perfection. But behind closed doors, Lily had begun to unravel, shaken not by the man beside her, but by the one she left behind, whose growth now mirrored the void in her own spirit. And when scandal broke that Damian was involved in a hush-money deal with a foreign donor, Lily reached out to Ethan, seeking not reconciliation, but clarity. And what she got was closier, quiet conversation in a coffee shop where Ethan thanked her, not sarcastically, but sincerely, because losing her had made space for Aria, for truth, for becoming. And Lily walked away that day, not with regret, but with respect, finally understanding that sometimes we are not the love of someone's life, but the lesson that prepares them for it. And years later, when Ethan and Aria sat beneath the soft golden canopy of an autumn sky, surrounded by the laughter of children from the school they'd funded in Aria's sister's name, he looked at her and didn't see the girl he had once hired to make someone else jealous, he saw the woman who had unmade him, remade him, and redefined every measure of love he thought he knew. And when Aria placed her head on his shoulder, whispering, "We didn't find each other by accident," he finally believed in something more powerful than fate. He believed in redemption, in healing, and in the quiet miracle of second chances. Not given, but earned. And yet, just as the horizon of peace seemed eternal, a letter arrived, sealed, in red wax, and addressed not to Ethan, but to Aria, with no return address. And when she opened it, her hands trembled because inside was a photo, grainy, aged, but unmistakable. Her sister, alive, standing in front of a clinic in Venezuela, and a note, "You were never meant to grieve her, only to find her." And Ethan watched as Aria's breath caught in her throat. Because the one truth she had built her identity on, that she had lost her sister, was now a question mark, a door, a beginning. And so once again, they stood at the edge of the unknown. Not broken, but ready, not afraid, but together. Because love, they learned, isn't about finding someone who completes you, it's about finding someone who dares to walk with you, even when the story rewrites itself in the final chapter.